If I were to ask you what you think the most underrated Call of Duty was, what would you say? Would you say Advanced Warfare, Ghosts, Black Ops Cold War? For me, the most underrated Call of Duty is one that people barely even talk about anymore. A game that built up more hype than any Call of Duty before it, only to get torn apart by poor leadership, questionable design choices, server problems, and Fortnite. A game that launched unfinished but slowly transformed into something I genuinely believe deserved a second chance. I think the most underrated Call of Duty is by the middle of Infinite Warfare's lifecycle, and honestly, even before launch, the Call of Duty community had already mentally moved on. Players were exhausted. For 3 years straight, Call of Duty had doubled down on futuristic movement. Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare. Jetpacks, wall running, boost jumping, laser weapons. The community had finally had enough. And to make matters worse, the biggest selling point of Infinite Warfare wasn't Infinite Warfare. It was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered, which was bundled with the game. People were literally buying a brand new Call of Duty just to play a remaster from 2007. This should have been Activision's first warning sign. The community wasn't asking for another futuristic shooter, they wanted boots on the ground. They wanted classic Call of Duty back. And then, April 26th, 2017 happened. The reveal trailer exploded. Over 1 million likes. One of the most positively received Call of Duty reveal in years, compared to Infinite Warfare's infamous trailer, which became one of the most disliked gaming videos on YouTube. World War II represents everything fans have been begging for. No jetpacks, no wall running, no exosuits, just boots on the ground. The hype was unbelievable, and it genuinely felt like Call of Duty was finally listening to the fans. November 3rd, 2017. The day had finally arrived. The beta had generated solid impressions despite some server issues, but people were optimistic. Pre-orders were some of the highest Call of Duty had seen in years. And then, the game launched. And it was a disaster. The servers barely worked. The headquarters social space, one of the game's biggest advertised features, had to be disabled because it couldn't handle the player count. Players couldn't even play consistently. Once those issues were fixed, new problems started showing themselves. The multiplayer had felt unfinished, with only 9 launch maps, one of them being Gustav Cannon. Then came the division systems. Instead of create a class, Sledgehammer Games completely replaced it, with infantry, expeditionary, airborne, armored, mountain. And on paper, it sounded immersive. Each class represented a real military role. In practice, players hated how restrictive it felt. Want a quickscope while carrying an SMG? Too bad. Want suppressors on assault rifles? Nope. Want both tactical and lethal grenades? Pick one. Unlimited sprint? Gone. Instead of giving players freedom, the game forced them into predefined playstyles. It was different. But different isn't always better. To make matters worse, supply drops returned. After years of criticism, microtransactions were once again front and center. At launch, World War II felt less like a triumphant return everyone expected, and more like another disappointment. As if things weren't bad enough, another game arrived, Fortnite, released only weeks before World War II, and Fortnite exploded in popularity. It was free, it was cross-platform, and easy to jump into. Perfect for friend groups. Casual players started leaving Call of Duty, and then content creators followed. Even some of Call of Duty's biggest YouTubers began uploading Fortnite instead. Ali is probably the biggest example. One of the faces of Call of Duty became one of Fortnite's biggest creators almost overnight. And when your biggest creators stop making videos about your game, that's usually a bad sign. Sledgehammer tried fighting back. They introduced the 1v1 pit, gridiron, new headquarters activities, and then war mode. And honestly, war mode might be one of the most underrated multiplayer modes Call of Duty has ever made. Instead of worrying about your KD, players pushed objectives, blew up bridges, escorted tanks, captured bunkers, built defenses. It genuinely felt like a World War II battlefield. And unlike traditional multiplayer, Your stats weren't even punished for playing the objective. Even today, fans still ask for war mode to return, and unfortunately, none of it stopped the bleeding. Player counts continued to fall. January 2018. Resistance launches, more maps, more zombies, a new Resistance division, but nothing really changed. And then, everything changed. February 20th, 2018. Activision announces that Michael Condrey and Glenn Schofield, the founders of Sledgehammer Games, were leaving day-to-day development. Aaron Holland took over, and almost immediately, players noticed a difference. War Machine had launched, along with perhaps the biggest gameplay overhaul in Call of Duty history. Divisions became flexible, unlimited sprint returned, extra weapon attachments, tactical and lethal equipment together. The game suddenly felt free. It was almost like Creative Class had quietly returned. Then came Horde Point. It's basically Hardpoint, but with zombies attacking everyone. An absolutely chaotic mode. And honestly, one of the most fun, limited time modes Call of Duty has ever made. The remaining DLCs continued improving the experience, and by the end of World War II's life cycle, the multiplayer people wanted in November 2017 finally existed. But there was just one problem. Most players had already left. And this is a part that I really wanted to throw in because nobody really talks about it. It's World War II Zombies. Everyone loves comparing it to Treyarch, and because of that, World War II Zombies never really got judged on its own merits. Personally, I love it. This is probably the scariest Zombies has felt since World at War. Dark, dirty, violent, grotesque. The zombies' designs were horrifying. The sound design constantly kept you uncomfortable. Jump scares are everywhere. There are no convenient barriers slowing zombies down. The spawns are unpredictable, and the maps are genuinely terrifying. The Final Reich remains one of the greatest non-Treyarch Zombies maps ever made. The Darkest Shore, nightmare fuel. This mode wasn't trying to be goofy, and it wasn't trying to be colorful. It wanted to scare you, and it absolutely succeeded. For me, that's exactly what zombies should feel like. If you only played World War II during launch, I completely understand why you disliked it. The servers barely functioned, the division systems felt restrictive, the map pool was weak, supply drops were everywhere, but if you came back later, you experienced a completely different game. One with improved gameplay, better customization, more content, one of Call of Duty's best objective modes in war, some genuinely fantastic DLC maps, and one of the most unique horror-inspired zombies experiences we've ever gotten. Did it become perfect? No. It still had flaws, but it became far better than what most people remember. Unfortunately, it fixed itself too late, and by then, Fortnite had already taken over. Black Ops 4 was on the horizon, and Call of Duty players had already moved on. World War II never got the redemption story it deserved, and because of that, I genuinely believe Call of Duty World War II is the most underrated Call of Duty ever made. But that's just my opinion. So now I want to hear yours. What do you think is the most underrated Call of Duty ever made? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. At 1,000 subs, I will be eating a Carolina Reaper pepper on stream, on camera. It don't matter. But we have to hit 1,000 subs. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.